So today I want to talk to you a little bit about Trondo OSM, which is Canonical's upstream OSM distribution. We will go into Canonical's vision of OSM and the technologies Canonical is contributing to the upstream and sort of championing in the ecosystem. And as well as want to present you the partner programs that we have in place for the OSM ecosystem. With that said, our vision for OSM is to provide an open source, carrier grade, hardened OSM with enterprise support and long-term security updates for the community, the partners, and the telcos. So let me break this down piece by piece. Why open source? You know Canonical as the contributor of Ubuntu, and you probably know that we stand for open source as the best thing that you can do with software to get contributions for all across the globe to ensure for great software quality. The same exact thing is what we want for OSM. Then we have carrier grade. So what does carrier grade mean for OSM? Carrier grade means the ability for OSM to respond to enterprise production needs with features such as high availability, with focus on security and fixes, with focus on infrastructure and infrastructure management. All these pieces need to come together in order to have a really carrier grade and production grade OSM. What is hardened OSM? So hardened OSM, usually hardened is a word that people get confused with or excited with, depending on their understanding of it. Hardened for us is really the security focus. We want to make sure that everybody that uses OSM knows that their systems are secure, both on the OSM application layer and the infrastructure that's running underneath. So, regardless if you're using a Kubernetes, if you're focusing on OpenStack, if you're using LXD or Juju, you should know that all your systems are secure. Then full enterprise support. I guess that needs no explanation. We want to make sure that the people that are using OSM can address their needs and can get full support in case of an issue. The long-term security updates are to ensure that on every release, after every CB has been discovered, you get a patch and that doesn't impact your service. And the fact that you can plan ahead for the future, knowing that the security updates, you're going to get them for the long run. And for the community partners and telcos, that's where the partner program comes into play. So this is us wanting to work with the community and work with the partners and the telcos to ensure that we provide an OSM that addresses all possible use cases and is effectively driving the telco business forward. So why would you choose Trondo OSM? As I mentioned before, we strongly believe that the partner programs that we put in place for GSIs, NEPs, and telco vendors are comprehensible and can drive value for the businesses. You would choose OSM for features like high availability to address high traffic in production cases. You would choose Trondo OSM for its automated operations. Canonical's business is to support Ubuntu at scale in telco and other sectors. So what we do in OSM is we believe that it drives NFV transformation and adoption of Ubuntu as an operating system. So therefore, we invest in OSM for the industry, and we're really happy to partner with anyone that is interested. What's our role in the OSM community? So currently, we have a TSC membership. We are leading N2VC and DevOps, the technical functions. And we are also leading all the efforts of upstream charmed OSM. One of the biggest contributions of Canonical in OSM itself and the architecture is what we call the VNF configuration adapter. So some others, you might know this as a VCA. So the VCA is based on Juju, which is one of the open source solutions of Canonical, which addresses one big topic: managing software. So how do you ensure that the application operations are streamlined in a way that is comprehensive, in a way that doesn't require messing with hundreds and hundreds of configuration files, in a way that shifts from maintaining tools, scripts, or files, and focusing more on business intent and business value. So this is what Juju brings to the table. Juju is essentially the brains behind all of OSM's application operations. What we are also working on is what's called the operator pattern. So this is a fairly new concept that has been introduced as a term within the Kubernetes ecosystem. So the operator pattern is becoming a big trend in Kubernetes. But this pattern is so much bigger than just the K8s ecosystem. The operator pattern is essentially the usage of software to drive software. So you have a piece of software wrapped around a software application to drive that application's day-to-day operation from day 0 to day 1500. So Juju is a universal operator lifecycle manager. What it does is that it enables the software, the operator software, to drive the operations on top of the applications. It's not just focused on the Kubernetes space, but it can also do traditional machine workloads, SaaS appliances, edge applications, you name it. So this is me talking about the universal operations. We get operators on Kubernetes. So here you have an example of the OSM setup that is driven by the operators. So the little circles that you see around the applications are a representation of an operator. But then you can also get the same on a simple VM or a cloud. So this is a representation of a Kubernetes cluster driven by operators. And then the same you can get on bare metal. So what you essentially get is universal operator that can run software on any substrate. And with that, you can get operators for both new containerized apps and the legacy estate, something that's really significant for telcos because everybody knows that telcos are slow to adopt the new technology trends, and they often end up in a field where they have some containers, they have some VMs, they have some monolithic applications. And with this universal operator, you can essentially drive the operations across all these different topologies and models. What is also great with universal operators is that you can have exactly the same operator, so exactly the same code to drive operations at many companies. So you can have the same operator in a bank, a retail shop, a specific industry, and telco. You just need to have one operator written for a specific application. And if the application is applicable for different scenarios and use cases across different industries, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can just have one operator code that gets better and better in time. So focusing on telco, you know, this is the standard setup of OSM managing VNFs. So you get OSM represented as a box, and you can have the VNFs that run on top of your VIM. They can be virtual machines, that can be containers. So the really great thing with these operators is that both the VNFs and the OSM itself are composed of operators. So this is why we have the little circles to represent the operators. So VNF1 and VNF2 are just VNF applications wrapped around their operators. And same for the individual OSM components. So if I zoom in to OSM, you can see that all the different components are operator driven. These are upstream operators that are available on any OSM distribution. We also, I guess you've seen during the Hackfest session that we used to refer to the CHOMs. So what is a CHOM? A CHOM is just an operator package. So with a CHOM, what you can do is do lifecycle, integration, and different actions and operation on top of the application. So you can think of a CHOM driving installation, driving configuration, driving updates, scaling up your applications, relating applications together, backing up your applications, or restoring that backup. So all these different actions you can do using this universal operators. Of course, the brains behind every successful operation is Juju, so the VCA. The operator is the idea. The CHOM is just the package. The CHOMs provide a native framework for implementing lifecycle management and have been chosen by the OSM community as a core component of OSM. So a CHOM can have the same effect across many topologies. So it doesn't matter if you're using your Zookeeper CHOM inside OSM. You can use exactly the same Zookeeper CHOM in an OpenStack concept. You can use it in a big data concept. That's the beauty of the CHOMs. It's a single piece of code that can be reused across the topologies, across the industries. And through reusability, we ensure code quality and the effective code distribution. We also use the CHOMs to tame a complex topology. So you are, instead of having a block of applications that have really complex operations, you can break them down into kind of the more microservices approach and use the individual CHOMs to drive their operations. So this is taming the complexity. What we also are really excited with is CHOM Hub. So this is the open operator collection. So we've already been working for quite some time into publishing great CHOMs on this open operator collection and for anyone to consume. So these are the kind of flagship CHOMs that we have coming from a set of database CHOMs like Postgres, Influx, and Mongo, to Kafka, to Prometheus, to OSM itself, other logging and monitoring solutions, and so on and so forth. And this is kind of our vision for the CHOM Hub, which will come out really soon. You will be able to find all the different OSM CHOMs alongside all the rest of the CHOMs that Canonical curates in the CHOM Hub. So this will ensure high quality CHOMs that can be reused, that can be iterated upon, and can improve their quality with time. Another big piece of work that we've contributed to the upstream has to do with the OSM Installer. So the previous colleague from Bennu was speaking about the challenges with installation. So what we wanted to do here is to have a really simple way to install OSM. So we have the upstream CHOMD installer that can get various inputs from the end user. It can manage single node or multi-node deployments. It can be substrate agnostic, so you can deploy OSM using a bare metal cloud, AWS, Azure, VMware, OpenStack, and it deploys all the OSM components, and it ensures that you can get support for them. It's essentially ensuring simplified and consistent post-deployment operations. So this is a view towards the Trondo OSM ecosystem. With Trondo OSM, you can use any Kubernetes. You have multiple Vim options such as Azure, AWS, OpenStack, or VMware. You can use Juju to provide you with charmed applications, and of course you can use Ubuntu as the base OS. To sum up some of the key benefits and features of Trondo OSM, we have high availability, streamlined lifecycle operations. We've already mentioned in the previous sessions the Python operator framework, which ensures that the charms that you want to write are easy to write, essentially, and maintain. The whole operator ecosystem with Charm Hub, a unified approach from development to production using the powers of the charms, a security focus with FIPS compliance and CIS hardening, CV patching of the containers, long-term enterprise support, production-grade SLAs, and an application delivery service. So now let's talk a little bit about our OSM partner programs. So here at Canonical, we're really proud to have our alliances team explore potential partnerships and ensure that our partners are successful in either using or selling or embedding our products. And the same applies to OSM. So we have created some specific programs for OSM. So we have the NetDevNF onboarding and certification. So this is essentially helping the nets to use universal operators for the VNFs and leveraging Canonical's expertise in working with operators. So what you will get is operators for VNF and infrastructure management, because as we said before, the operators are applicable both on the application layer and across all different substrates. You get reusable operations code embedding business intent. You get CV patching of the containers and a hardened infrastructure. The next one is own brand charmed OSM partners. So this is for partners who offer OSM already under their own brand. So this way, what you can do is get charmed OSM, branded and customize it to meet your own requirements. So this is providing a sort of a differentiated OSM offering with which you get access to pre-certified VNFs. You still get FIPS, CIS benchmarking, and container CV patching to assure that you are both compliant and secure. And of course, you get the predictable release cadence, as charmed OSM fast follows the upstream release cadence. Finally, you can get embedded charmed OSM, which is to integrate upstream charmed OSM with support from Canonical. So here you get long-term enterprise support, production-grade SLAs, rapid deployment using the operators, and integration with logging, monitoring, and alerting stacks to meet your monitoring needs. And with that, I'll leave the floor to questions. I don't know if, Mark, you want to chip in and say something?
No, I think you've framed it well. Let me just repeat some of the things that Alex stated up front. There are no features in any sort of canonical OSM offering that we don't contribute upstream. Everything that we do in OSM is contributed upstream. The important thing for us is to enable as many people to engage with OSM as possible. And so, we think it's important that if people want to have differentiation in their OSM offerings, that be easy to do. A key goal for us is to do comprehensive VNF certification onboarding and make sure that that works across the community, across multiple different OSM offerings from different companies. And then last, let me just say, I think the ability to operate OSM is going to be, easily and to a very high standard is going to be a key criteria for OSM's sort of shift into production. You all know that, large-scale software can be complicated. There are lots of things that can go wrong. And using the operator pattern, using charms to operate OSM itself, to me is important in terms of keeping the size of the operating manual down to the smallest possible size, and also to make sure that across the entire community, everybody's benefiting from things that we're learning about using OSM in production, right? We really want to make sure that that knowledge is not fragmented and scattered, but rather is baked into the product, which everybody shares. And that's why we're contributing that upstream. Alex, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Do we have any questions?
So far, I'm not seeing any questions on the chat. If anybody has a question, you can either place it into the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and speak directly.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Vidya here. And I just want to clear something maybe you have already covered in the presentation, but does Charmed OSM is focusing on providing the whole ecosystem for the OSM and for telcos? Like, I guess this is only the a point that we should consider in the OSM in production. So does Charmed OSM focusing on that? Like so to provide the whole ecosystem? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Can you clarify what you mean by provide the whole ecosystem?
To provide the whole package, like to cover the interoperability and to cover the like to expose the interfaces that can easily be interoperable with the VIMs and with the other NFE components in the architecture. So like we already we always need all the components of ecosystem to make OSM functional.
Yes.
So in that context.
So just to be clear, so Charmed OSM isn't really a separate product. It's just really running OSM with charms. And so it's all the charms that you need to run, not just OSM, but the components around OSM, like the various monitoring and management capabilities. So our goal is that you can, just type OSM install and have a full OSM with all of the components effectively that you need around it, successfully deployed, highly available, integrated, and then with an easy operations guide. So Charmed OSM is really just OSM. Those charms are upstream at OSM. We just wanted to distinguish OSM when it's been deployed by charms from OSM if it's been deployed some other way. And we essentially wanted to make sure that folks know that that is all available for free upstream.
Okay.
So when we install, I have a similar question that when we install from the OSM-HC.org, so the charms do not get we do not get all these charms as a part of that.
You can the upstream installer OSM install if you use the -- charmed argument. So Alex, if you want to go to the slide that has that. So if you use the upstream software, then you'll find this shell script, install OSM. And if you put there -- charmed, then you are using the charmed approach to installation. So then the installer will use the charms. You can, if you do that on your laptop, just -- charmed, then it will install everything on your laptop. But you can actually, if you have a more production environment, for example, if you have a Kubernetes cluster, you can point the installer to the Kubernetes cluster. If you have a LXD cluster, you can point the Kubernetes to a LXD cluster. If you already have a production Juju deployment, then you can point the installer to that Juju deployment with VCA equals and the details there. And so then this installer will actually reuse those components rather than sort of spinning them up locally on the machine that you're doing the install on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
And so essentially what this does is it says, okay, if you have the operator lifecycle manager, the VCA, Juju, if you have that running, then I can reuse it. I can essentially model OSM and deploy OSM that way, and then turn around and configure OSM to use the same Juju for its VCA, right? So the Juju instance is acting as an operator lifecycle manager. It's providing lifecycle management services effectively to the charms, which are the operators. So if you don't have one, you can just say -- charmed, and it'll be instantiated as part of standing up OSM. If you do have one, you can pass it, and then it will be used. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Thanks. Got it.
So would just encourage you guys to try that and give feedback to the team just in the normal Slack channels and so on. They're all participating there, and happy to work with anybody who is interested in either embedding this in their own Nano efforts or differentiating based on it and sort of customizing it. We're happy to help you do that.
I see no other questions. There was one in the chat that Dominic answered. Yeah, I think that's it. No questions on Slack either.
Yeah, Nishank had a question that Dominic has answered, which was about reusing code in charms. I think this is really important. As we've been getting into this idea of software that drives software, we've taken different approaches over the years, right? Originally, we thought, well, everybody will want to write the software their own way. And what we've moved to now is much more of a shared code community approach, which I think is what you're describing there, Nishank. It's really useful if there's a nice big library of functions that handle things that lots of operators have to do. And so we've moved very decisively to encourage people to write charms in Python, because that's what most people have used. And it's now a lot easier to share code between charmers effectively if everybody uses Python. You don't have to use Python, but there's many more developers writing charms in Python, and we're setting up mechanisms to make it even easier to share code between those charms. So you can literally import code from another charm, and that makes it really easy to integrate, to write charms that essentially integrate two pieces of software, because they can share the code necessary with each other.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And so Python is the preferred way, right? Of course, there is provision for more, but Python is the preferred way to write charms, right?
That's right. Juju is language neutral. Juju delivers events to the charm, effectively to the operator. It delivers those events by calling a binary that the charm provides. That binary can be written in any language. So if there's an update to configuration, then what Juju does, the Juju agent invokes a binary in the charm, which would be configuration updated, and it provides the new configuration, and that binary then does whatever it wants. What we're encouraging people to do is to use Python and then they can essentially import code from other charms much more easily, right? If you go and look in the collection, there's hundreds of charms, and there are some written in Bash, right? It's possible to write in, you know, a charm in any language. But what we found is that, in fact, building a community around Python has really helped things take off.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Well, if there are no other questions, Sylvia, back to you.